Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another of our Catalyst meditations. Um, this one, I want to talk about something that is happening now, something some of you may have participated in. Um, we talked about it a little bit before. Um, and it's the question of where is our focus as a society? Are we focused on what is being born, or are we focused on that which is dying? It takes something to really to consciously change your focus. I don't know if you've done that in your personal lives, when you literally try to focus away from something, and every single day it seems like the universe keeps throwing that thing at you. If you've been in a relationship and everything that happens, every cloud that passes over in the sky looks like your former relationship. And you actually, when you get to a certain state, you begin to recognize that you're the one doing that you're the one making these appearances happen. And when you realize that, then you start seeing, oh, there's another way of doing this. There's another connection that I can be making. There's another way I can hold my thoughts. Um, for those of you who have known me for a while, you know my focus is on creating a world that works for all, creating a world that works for all living beings. There's almost nothing in our mutual society, our mutual future, that focuses on that. Almost everything is focused on, how do I make more money? How do I get more stuff? How do I get more what goes for security in this society, but isn't security? It's how do I get more money? Um, Recently, we've been spending an awful lot of time on, how do I vent my anger? Um, Anger at how the society is going, anger at various individuals or various people who may be pulling in a direction that you don't like. Whether you see yourself on the side of the winners or the losers, there's still an awful lot of anger around. And so our challenge is, how do we um, rise above that? How do I get beyond that? Um, well, if you listen to like me, a majority of the people who are around you, and I don't think I live in a bubble. I think that this is kind of like what's going on around me is called life. Um, I consider my apartment my sanctuary. I don't let people in here unless they're holding a particular energy or a particular consciousness. And I don't mean you have to pass a test or anything like that to get through the door. But if there are people who are not in keeping with your uh, your life, why do you bring them into your life? And so that goes to your home. Every once in a while, somebody's got to come in and fix something. So yeah, that those things happen. Um, I back when the coffee house I went to was really packed, it's like, yes, you can come sit with me, but can you kind of maintain distance? Because I'm not afraid of viruses. I'm just afraid of your thoughts. Um, so I was not listening the other day to some people who came into the coffee house, and I heard I knew them, and one of them said, and I think he said loud enough for me to hear it, "Oh, you don't want to go sit with him. He's not going to like our conversation." And they were right. They spent one full solid hour talking about Donald Trump. Isn't he a turkey? Isn't he a fool? Isn't he? He's ruining our society. He's da 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 da. And they did this for one solid hour. And they did it with the practiced ease that lets you know they've been doing this for a while, a long while. This has probably been the one conversation they've had for the last several months. Okay. And after an hour, I had to run to the bathroom, so I had to pass them. On the way back, I said, "How are y'all doing? And tell me what you've created in the last hour." And they were like, it's like, number one, I didn't think you could hear me from over there. Number two, it's like, we ran down Trump. I said, it's like, I know what you did. It's like, what did you create? When the props fall out of the society that we've got right now, and I mean, like, when the economic props fall out, when the social props fall out. Um, I was in Uganda. I was in Kampala a few decades ago, and they had just been out from one of the seven civil wars that they had in a row. Museveni had just taken power, um, and he's still there. So, which means that this is the most stable government they've had in decades. And so nothing worked. A city of 1 million people, and nothing worked. The water didn't work. The street lights didn't work. Um, there are people who showed up at government offices, but the government offices didn't work. Um, and how do you do that? Well, the people in Uganda learned some skills on what you had to do. We have paid no attention to those, to developing those skills, because we don't believe that's going to happen to us. Even in the middle of it happening, we don't believe it's going to happen. Even while it's happening, we won't believe that it's happening. And that is um, too bad, because valuable time is wasting. And one of the most important things that we can do is connect with each other. One of the most important things, I mean, so this catalyst meditation that we're here to do today in 16 minutes, um, is one of the most important things that we can do, is to bring our consciousness together, so that whatever we're doing it together. If whatever you're doing, if you're doing it together, you're going to have a better chance of us, number one, surviving, and number two, thriving, than if you're trying to do it by yourself. And I don't care how much money you've got. I don't care how much money you've squirreled away in all the various squirrel holes that we can put money into. So our challenge is, how do we together create a consciousness that elevates us past all of the stuff that we need to elevate ourselves past. Um, one of the things that people have been telling me um, is that um, Bernie Sanders and AOC, and I apologize every time I say AOC because I know she has a name, and I know that it's a little bit difficult for me to say. And so, like everybody else, I'm falling into a bad habit. Um, and I want to say it's a bad habit of not respecting someone else's culture. Um, um, but apparently, they've gone on the warpath, and apparently, they are fired up, and apparently, they're saying things that are drawing tens of thousands of people out. Um, and it reminds me of a situation that I had some years ago. Um, back when Dennis Kucinich was running for president, um, I happened to be a keynote speaker on a platform that had him on it. It was not a political platform, but a place where both of us were speaking. I don't know if you don't remember the green festivals that would go around the various towns in this country. Um, and it just so happened that he and I were on the same speaking at the same event near the same time. So this is the first time I'd ever heard him live. Remember, I try to curate my consciousness. So, and he was an effective speaker, um, and he had a fired up crowd. I mean, people were ready to hear him, and they were cheering, and I was kind of sitting back, and the people who were there to hear me were kind of sitting back, waiting to hear something that I hadn't heard before in his sound bites and things like that. And so he finished, and he did credible job for his audience. And I got up, and of course, I was brilliant. Um, um, I was I I touched on all the topics that I usually touch on, that we need to change our consciousness, and that we need to change it in a particular direction. We need to create more inclusivity and da, da, da. Okay, and people actually applauded. Um, as it so happened, um, Kucinich and I were staying at the same hotel, and we had a mutual 5 minute break. And so I had 5 minutes to talk with him. I said, I know who you are. And I said, as diplomatically as possible, I said, you made a very credible speech. And I said, but I didn't hear anything that I hadn't heard in any of your news coverage, etc. And he looked at me and he said, of course not. He says, I tell them what they want to hear. And I applauded him, and I still applaud him for his honesty. The question is that what we need to hear? What I already know to hear, and I know my cheering points. And reflecting back on his speech, he said something that my folks woke up and said, "Whoa, that's new. That's interesting." And everybody else went to sleep. Like, what did he say? Um, he said he was talking about our kind of where the society is going, and the wrong directions that we're taking. And he said, it's kind of like a throwout line. He says, we may need a new constitutional convention to talk about the nature of our society. And the Commonway folks went, whoa, that's a really good idea. And everybody else went, what's that mean? Does that mean I have to work? Does that mean I have to do anything other than cheer and feel like I'm in a soccer match and then at the end of it leave and go have some dinner? You know, does that mean I've got to actually get engaged? And does that mean I have to get engaged with my other? Well, who wants any of that? You know, um, I don't want to fight. I just want to win. I don't want to uh, get involved in the nature of creating a society. Um, something one of my daughters, my eldest daughter, said, um, and I've got it. It was so profound. I have it on a sticky uh, on my computer screen. At some point in time, I don't remember the context. She said, "People want to be part of your result, but they don't want to be part of your process." And I thought that that was profound enough for me to look at every day. And the people who are engaged in the process of changing the consciousness of a society, well, several of them are right here, right now, on the screen. Several of them can't be in this time zone, or this would be the equivalent of you waking up at 3 a.m. for something like this. Um, what I do is I get up at 3 a.m. to talk to them. Um, and oops, I better get a little faster here. Um, I was going to spend some time um, with talking about the difference between a political program and a societal vision. But I don't have the time now. I will take the time on the 22nd of this month, talking about catalyzing the ecstatic society. And I'm not going to talk about that today. But I will say that the cornerstone. So I taught at a college that doesn't exist anymore, Marylhurst College here in Portland, and the head of our department, um, anybody he met with, every time he had a meeting, he says, "I want to tell you what my 5 key visions are," and he would go through each one of them. Um, everybody has a right to be heard. Everybody has and he lived those visions to the point that he said them every time he got together. That meant that he had those visions. He was a holder of those visions. So right now, when somebody, if you go into a meeting with someone, what are the 3 or 5 things that you say you will be held accountable for? Okay. What are the 5 things that you think that our society ought to do? And not just, I'm sitting in the coffee house and, I'm holding my teacup and I think we should all have universal health care. Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. No. What are the things that you are dedicated to? Um, I think that the last line of the Declaration of Independence was, "To this we hold, our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor." That line is there because each one of the people who signed it knew at that point there's only one direction to go in, and that was to win. They knew what King George was going to do to them by signing that document. The first thing was killing him. Okay, that's the first thing they did was kill him. Drawn and quartered. And if you don't know what that means, it's too early in the morning. We should look it up. Okay. Um, then they take all of your property. So the king now owns your house, owns your lands, owns the whole 9 yards. And then they would take your name. Your children would not be allowed to call themselves Franklin or Jefferson or Washington. They'd have to change their name because the king would own your name. Now, what are we up against? What are we when you say we are pledged to creating a world that works for all living beings? Everybody looks, everybody says, "Oh, that's a great idea," or they look at, well, "What's that mean?" And that's about as far as it goes. So we need, and I think I mentioned, oh no, I mentioned for Tuesday coming, the whole issue of the 3Ds, the direction, the devotion, and the discipline to holding your attention where you need it to be to accomplish the goals that you have set. Not necessarily the goals I've set or anybody else has set, but your own goals. So if I've made a pledge to create a world that works for all, I'm going to stop talking bad about any part of that world. I'm going to stop blaming my problems on others. I'm going to start looking at how do we hold the vision of a holonic society? How do we hold a vision of a society where we consciously think about every single being that's living in that society? I saw two children just yesterday, and I'm losing track of when you're about this tall. I think you're about 7 or 8 years old, you know. So they were talking on the street, and one of them saw the other one had a ladybug on their shirt, and they focused their energy on this ladybug. They were intent on this ladybug. Now, their parents were just standing there like, what? Why are these kids just standing there staring? And one of them took the ladybug on the tip of their finger, and so the two kids are focused there, and they focused their parents on this ladybug. Okay. And so there's this moment of what I call holonic consciousness, where all of their consciousness was focused outside of themselves, outside of their egos, outside of I'm going to be late for work, and all of them focused on that moment. And people walking by, like, what are they looking at? You know, but Ladybug's too little to see, and they slow down a little bit. Okay. Now, this is just a ladybug. Okay. Um, what happens when we can focus the energy of an entire society on life, and not just a ladybug, but all life, including the life that you kill every day? Okay. We'll get into that some other point in time, and some other time might be at the end of our meditation, which is coming up right now. Folks are starting to come in for the meditation. I am going to start letting people in. Um, and say we really didn't end on a fairly on too conclusive a point. I, I've got my notes here, and I had the discipline to get through most of them, but didn't get through all of them. I am going to do the things that I need to do right now to organize for the catalyst meditation, and I'm going to go off screen for a few seconds in order to do that. Um, and I'm going to ask that you sit tight. So while I do that, and I'll be right back. Oh, and as usual, that was my monologue. We don't have time for you to respond to it, but we will have time at the end of the Catalyst meditation for us to do something like that, to talk about that or whatever else we need to talk about. We had a great talk last week, so maybe we'll have another great one. The pressure is on you to come up with a great one. Um, so I look forward to, I'll be back in a minute or two, and we'll go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Catalyst meditation today. All of you are muted, which is great. And welcome to those who have joined us today. Welcome to those who are following on the outline. And I see that there are a couple of people doing that. And welcome to those who have been with us in the past on the Catalyst meditation, but they can't join us today. They still hold our energy, and so I want to acknowledge them. We're going to begin with our 5-minute centering meditation. We're going to do that the way we have been doing that, which is with a breathing app that gets all of our breathing synchronized. And I hope that this synchronized breathing is syncing us together on this call, but syncing us together with all of the other beings that are surrounding you and inside of you. Remember, you are a home to trillions and trillions. You are a colony, and you're making up other colonies, and it's time for us to start acting like that. Okay, so this is going to be a 3-minute breathing app, a 3-minute centering meditation with the breathing app. Then a few more minutes with just silence to continue our centering. So we're going to start that as of right now. So breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. And let's continue with our silent centering for a few minutes. Okay, if we can come back to our common center. We'll begin with our intentions. As the imaginal cells within the chrysalis come together to form the butterfly out of the disintegrated caterpillar cells, we come together to form a gateway for the meta-consciousness of the mind of Gaia. We act for ourselves personally, and we act as aspects of Gaia, of Mother Earth. Holonic consciousness is a fundamental aspect of the universe. Every atom in the universe holds consciousness. It is always with us. We're acknowledging that now because many humans have forgotten and many humans have been in denial. We act to reawaken our connection to Gaia for the benefit of all living beings. And we acknowledge our connection to all beings. This includes all humans, including those who have gone before and those who are to come. This includes all beings who thrive on and in the air, all beings who thrive on and in the water, all beings who thrive on and in the earth, all beings who thrive on and in our bodies, all beings that thrive on light, the beings of the plant realms, all meta beings, and that includes the earth as a living meta being, air as a living meta being, fire as a living meta being, water as a living meta being, all colony beings, meta beings that are collections of solo beings. And this includes murmurations, colonies, schools, hives, pods, flocks, herds, migrations, swarms, and other forms of meta beings, of colony beings, and all other forms of consciousness, known and unknown to us. And we acknowledge these beings and now blend all of our energies. May all who are part of Gaia be connected to and in perfect health, harmony, and balance, with each other and with Gaia for the common good. We are in perfect physical health, harmony, and balance. We are in perfect emotional health, harmony, and balance. We are in perfect relational health, harmony, and balance. We are in perfect mental health, harmony, and balance. We are in perfect spiritual health, harmony, and balance. We are in perfect holonic health, harmony, and balance. We are in perfect spatial and temporal health, harmony, and balance. We are in the perfect place at the perfect time, in the perfect conditions, and with the perfect beings. We set our declarations. We declare that Gaia, Mother Earth, is the ultimate governing principle, the way that humans govern their behavior on this planet, replacing all other forms of human governance. This is the way our behavior aligns with the will of the Earth. We declare that humans are colony beings. We deepen and expand our human murmurations. We declare that Gaia is providing all necessary resources to achieve the vision of a world that works for all living beings. We declare that we are creating a political and economic system where all beings participate in it, all beings are in relationship with it, all beings own it, all beings benefit from it, and all beings govern it for the common good. We now meditate within this energy, within the holonic energy, within the energy of Mother Earth. We'll be listening for messages that we may have from her. We will be making any personal requests we may have. And we'll be deepening and expanding our human experience of our human murmurations. And we're going to do this for approximately 8 minutes or so. And we'll be starting that now. Okay, if we can come back to our mutual center, we will continue with the conclusion of our catalyst meditation with our inclusivity mantra. You can recite silently with me or after me, or you can be silent and listen. May I be well. May I be secure. May I be happy. May you be well. May you be secure. May you be happy. May we be well. May we be secure. May we be happy. And may all beings be well. May all beings be secure. May all beings be happy. And so it is. And so it shall be. I thank you for joining me in this catalyst meditation. It always lifts me up, even sometimes when I'm pretty down. And I appreciate you being with me for the lifting. I don't have to wait too long because Greg has already unmuted himself and he's ready to chime in here as I am drinking my tea.
Good morning, weekly crew. I'd like to say hello to my friend Shauna, who is joining us for the first time. And I just wanted to say that I had a wonderful meditation this morning, and I've got a race to get to the gym, so I'll be leaving with Liana this morning.
Okay, cool. Well, both of you are going to the gym. Okay. That I kind of feel that's not going to be the case, but yes, we will see you, and I'll try to arrange things so that if there is a discussion like we had last week, which was I thought was I'm still kind of resonating with, that will be available to you for those of you who have to leave early. Any other comments, thoughts, etc. that you want to say at this time? I had a couple of things that came up for me in the meditation, so I would like to share them with you, but I want to hear from everybody else first. Absolutely everybody else first. Okay, I just heard from all of you. Um, so, and it's kind of strange. Oh, Janet, yes, you've got something you would like to say, waving that meat hand around. That's what you got to actually have two of them.
Hi, everybody. I got a message this morning during the meditation, and it was like a request for me to ask of myself when I when I wake up in the morning. This is it. Put people in my path and other life in my path that I can be kind and generous to. Put them in my path today.
I'm writing down.
I think that speaks to how we can participate, how I can participate in the process of creating a world that works for all of life.
I think that's a worthy sentiment. I think that's a worthy thing to hold. And I also think you should be really, really surprised and hopefully pleasantly surprised at um, who and what gets put into your path. And I'm thinking of a situation that I was in one of my favorite places on earth. Okay, that's saying a lot. I've been to a lot of earth here. And um, but I was in Bali, a beautiful island. How many of us have been to Bali? I've been for almost all of you then. So I've been there about 5 or 6 times. And I've been to one of the most beautiful places on the island, which is in the center of the island. The city, it's not even a city, it's like a village of Ubud. And one of the most beautiful places in Ubud, which is, I was staying at this, they call them hotels, but they're not anything that looks like a hotel to you. Each of you gets this little, I'm not going to describe it, it's going to take too long. It's just, everything's just beautiful. The doors are carved beautifully. The chair you're sitting on is beautiful. And I was sitting outside of the little cabin that I had. This beautiful curved roof. It was beautiful. And I was sitting, it was planted with all of this lush tropical plants. And I was thinking, so I was meditating out there. And the thought came to me, this can't get any more beautiful than it is. This is just like, this is, this was a peak experience. Okay. And then it got more beautiful. This pure white butterfly zigzags into um, my field of view. And I just think it just got better. And then there was this, medium-sized bird that comes along and snaps up the butterfly, takes its foot and peels off its wings. And so the wings flutter to the ground. And he swallows the butterfly and then looks at me. And this had to be one of the most ugly birds I'd ever seen. It was this dull gray color. I guess it was about as big as a chicken with long legs. And its beak went down like it was frowning. And it had these red eyes like it had been out drinking too long. And he's looking at me like, okay, am I beautiful? Just ate your butterfly. And I realized that uh, I had to be, as you would say, Janet, kind and generous to that bird that just ate my butterfly. And I did. I wanted my butter. Oh, and there's a little breeze, so the butterfly wings kept fluttering along, as though the butterfly still like, wait a minute, wait a minute. And when I see beauty in the world, and when I see something that I identify as less than beauty in the world, something I don't want, I have to recognize the beauty of that too. And may all of us be challenged in such a way that we expand our capacity to love. Including, I didn't even bother looking up what the bird was called. It's like it may have some like really deep element where it was fitting into the ecosystem, etc. But All it was, I could name it the butterfly eater. So, but anyway, so thank you for that trip down my memory lane. That happens with me, not just with birds and butterflies. It happens with people and all sorts of other beings that I would rather not deal with. We talked about that a bit in the pre-meditation talk. And we get to talk about it a little bit more here. Any other thoughts before I give the couple of things that came to me during the meditation? One of them, and for those of you who uh, know my deep, dark secret past, I am a former practicing attorney. Don't hold that against me. I'm like I said, I've done my penance. I am now a productive citizen. Um, and that's called a joke. I I enjoyed practicing law, and sometimes I enjoyed it too much. It definitely is an ego exercise, and mine got exercised. Um, but one of the cases we studied in law school was called Ford versus Dodge, and you know those names. But back in the day, these weren't these huge multinational institutions. These were people. Um, Henry Ford and the Dodge brothers. Um, Henry Ford hadn't had this really wild notion that actually, I think, rose to the level of a vision. And that is that the people who worked in his factories would be able to buy his cars. That number one, they were paid well enough to be able to buy the car, but number two, the car was cheap enough to for a regular worker to be able to afford and buy. Well, the Dodge brothers, who had invested in Ford, um, disagreed. They wanted Ford to make cars for high end people. They wanted the market for the Rolls Royces of the world, the Mercedes Benzes of the world, was very, very small, but very, very lucrative. You didn't have to make a whole lot of cars to make a whole lot of money, um, and make all that money for the investors. And Ford was pretty adamant about, I'm not here working for the investors. I'm here working for the people, the American people who need cars that they can afford, good cars that they can afford, um, and for my workers and for others. And I don't want to paint this guy as too much of a hero, because we know he had an amazingly dark side to himself. Um, But anyway, in this case, this actually went to court, and it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the Dodge brothers are right. You are not here to work for your workers. You're not here to work for the American people. You're here to make money for your investors. And so um, sell more expensive cars and make more money for your investors. They win. Um, and when you come across a consciousness like that, that says, I want to create, he wasn't even saying, I want to create a world that works for all living beings. He did not say that. He just said, I want to make a world that works for my workers. And the Supreme Court said, oh, no, you don't. You don't get to do that. Um, um, Another thing that came, and this is something some of you have heard me say before, you know that Václav Havel has been the former dissident, the former president of the Czech Republic, um, has been someone has been very influential with and for me. I did not have nearly enough time with him on a personal level, but our connections, I think, they were influential for me. I hope they were influential for him too. But a story that came out of his time when he was in a Soviet prison, I think is interesting for us now. So his job in the prison was pushing the laundry carts around, um, um, uh, which, according to him, was just as boring as it sounds. Um, and he ran into a guy he didn't know was another political prisoner. He didn't know was in the prison, pushing his laundry cart around. And they had about 10 minutes that they could talk to each other before the guards would say, okay, finish pushing your carts around. Um, so so they had this 10-minute time that they could talk. What would we talk about if you saw a friend in the same prison you were in? We kind of know what we would say. Uh, how brutal the system is, how unfair it is that they're in the prison, etc. But what these two guys did when they met each other in the middle of a Soviet prison was talk about the nature of the society they would create when they got out. They used this 10 minutes to define a vision for their society. Havel got out, they dusted him off, they put a suit on him and made him the president of the country. The other guy dusted him off, put a suit on him, and he became the first secretary. And as I've been saying to people, are you ready? Are you prepared to be the prime minister? Are you prepared to be the governor? Are you prepared to be the leader of a society? And it's really okay if your answer is no, I'm not prepared. What's not okay is for your answer to stay no. It's like, okay, you've got time now. Let's get prepared. And we don't even know how to prepare for this. I don't know. I'm we're making this up as we go along. I've never birthed a society before. um our um we want to leave it up to somebody else. We don't want to take on the responsibility. But the folks that signed the Declaration of Independence said, yeah, I want to take on that responsibility. Uh, um, Tara asked me a question that I can read because I got my glasses on. Um, she says in a quote, I don't want to fight, I just want to win, which is unquote. I believe I know what you mean by this, but to win too often sounds like a zero-sum goal. Do I have any thoughts? Oh, yes, I've got lots of thoughts on that. Um, some of my business partners, my working partners, are working with some of the small towns that are facing water shortages. And they're facing the shortages because they um, uh, everybody at the table has a different level of water rights. And water rights are really, really big, okay? Especially in an area like Oregon, where sometimes you've got way, way too much water and sometimes you have way too little. And so different folks have different levels of rights, of water rights. The right to a percentage of the water in a river, for example. And nobody wants to give them up. Even if you're not using it, you force yourself to use the rights because you know if you don't use them that you'll lose them. And so basically it's me first, screw you. And I think that's a pretty good definition of a zero-sum game. Um, and what happens though when we are thinking holonically, where I'm recognizing that every element in this process is conscious, every element should be respected, and every element is um, has to win in order for all of us to win. So I can't even define a win where you lose. And it's really interesting that when my business partners start from that premise, everybody else gets it. It's like, okay, well, we're if there's a burden here, we'll share the burden together. If there's a benefit here, we'll all share in the benefit. And these are people who have historically not been seeing each other very kindly, maybe not even seeing each other as living beings at all. And I'm talking about, for example, the ranchers and then the growers. They're in agriculture, but they have two completely different needs. And then the Native Americans who have treaty rights to water, to how much water they can have. And then city people who have a different level of water need and don't even know that the other folks even exist. And so um, one of the things that growers do is grow the most water intensive crops that they possibly can to use up as much water as they can to justify their hold on this percentage of water. So they'll do things like um, uh, grow cotton and grow rice in the middle of a desert just to use up maximum water. What if you change that and say, okay, no, we're all in this together. I'm going to move my need down the line a bit so that these other folks can move up the line a little bit. How do we do this together?
Trish,
And
can
by
I,
just who is
that's
Tara.
Tara.
Yeah,
I'm just
okay.
interrupting because I have to leave in about 2 minutes. I absolutely get what's happening and the all, everyone wins. What I was wondering about, and that's because I'm a minister who gets into words, was whether there's some other way to say win that doesn't immediately for most people say, oh, there's winners and losers. I mean, I totally
Right.
get what you're up to and I love it. And I was just sort of tweaking wording because of the way that win sounds for many people.
Yes. Um, and okay, number one, yes, I agree. And number two, No, I don't have another word. We're working on the words. Okay. Um, um, the this is part of the nature of holonic consciousness. We don't think like this. Okay. We don't think that, for example, um, fish are in my community. I mean, we think of fish as a commodity. We think of trees as a commodity. We don't think of them as living conscious beings. You know, you cut them down, you uproot them. If you got bugs in your on your land, you dump Roundup on it, and you don't have the bugs anymore. And we have to have a whole different way of thinking that doesn't sound too squishy, because a lot of times it's like, oh, you're just talking about loving the trees, etc. You're a tree hugger, and I'm going to then dismiss you. So we have to. This has to have some heft to it, some meat to it. Yeah. Um, and we get to come up with it together, because somebody else. I won't be the one that comes up with it. Somebody else will come up with it, and that will be good. Um,
Thank
okay,
you. I've got to scoot. Sorry.
okay, Scoot. So Janet, you are on point here.
Oh, I just wanted to propose to Tara, but I was a little late. Just another, just throwing out an idea. I don't want to fight. I just want all parties to have their needs met.
Mhm.
Just
Um,
starting place.
yeah, you just raised a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, let's see what you just raised. Okay. Um, I found this to be true. At one point in time, I was doing a lot of um, work on the international level in terms of peace. And I wasn't involved in any of the hottest of the hot button issues like the Middle East or the Congo or anything like that. Um, but I was involved in some real messes. I still can't talk to you about how I was involved. I won't reveal any of the negotiations or anything like that. But there's one near to here, and I'm sorry. If you remember the Chiapas rebellion that was in Mexico a few decades ago, um, and um, I think I can say this. Um, it became clear that Subcomandante Marcos, who was the leader of the Chiapas rebellion, that he did not want to win. He wanted to fight. I was clear in my work in Sri Lanka, having one of the few people who actually met with the Tamil Tigers. I mean, most people talked about them. I talked with them. That half of the organization, maybe more than half, 2/3 of the organization, wanted a negotiated settlement and wanted the settlement on the basis of what I was talking about. My first thought was, okay, we're going to create an island that works for all. And they were like, whoa, I mean, from the minority's point of view, most people say, oh, we want to create an island where you're in a preserve or you're in a on a reservation somewhere and we don't have to think about you. The idea that we want this island to work for you, that was winning for them. But there's another element of the Tigers. Um, um, led by the person Velupalai Prabhakaran. And I won't tell you how long it took me to learn how to say his name. Um, who the only thing he wanted was a perpetual war. His only time he would work on a strategy was if that was part of him getting his perpetual war. And so at one point there's an alignment with him and this other part of his own organization, but then there's going to be another part where there is a split. I am not privy to anything in terms of happening in the Middle East, but I think that both Hamas and the Israeli Defense Forces are in the same boat. I think that there are people on both sides that do not want an end to the conflict. They want the conflict to continue. I think the majority of people want the conflict to end and end in a decent way, not end in the complete subjugation of one side or the other. The question, though, is how does the holonic view come forward? And when you think about the money and the effort and the time that's on the other side, it's going to be very difficult, but that's what we got to deal with, and it means that because we don't have billions of dollars in armaments, et cetera, to throw around, we've got to approach it in a different way. And approaching it means approaching it with the only tools that we've got, which is the tools of the heart. And I'm knowing that that's going to be enough. I don't know in what time frame. Okay, actually, I'm going to unblur myself for a second. Now, how do I blur myself? I got to unblur my background. Yes, my room. And then I'm going to elevate my camera a bit so I can show you who's on my wall. And you can barely see it. That is a portrait of Peter the Great. Okay, that's not completely washed out in my light. So the question is, why do I have a megalomaniacal mass murderer on my wall? Um, the flippant answer is that if I put Adolf Hitler on my wall, I'd have a lot more questions to answer. The real answer is Peter the Great had a vision for Russia. A huge vision. I mean, he single-handedly created the city of St. Petersburg. When he took it over from the bloodthirsty Norwegians, they were bloodthirsty at the time. he got one of his soldiers' swords and he put a big X in the middle of the swamp. And he pointed to it and he said, "This is the center of the most beautiful city in all of Europe." 10 years later, where he put that X was the centerpiece of the most beautiful city in all of Europe. And that happened because he didn't care how many millions of people had to die in order to make that happen. So he's on my wall as a constant reminder of, can we achieve this magnanimous vision, this huge vision of the most beautiful human society that we've ever been able to create, the most inclusive human society we've been able to create, without killing the tens of millions of people. That's so Peter's on my wall as my challenge. I actually know how to do this and kill the people. It's like, and it wouldn't be tens of millions. It might only be hundreds of thousands, and they might not be people. They might just be cattle. It might just be, destroy the forest, like, oh, this is a small loss. Unless you talk to the forest, in which case they think it's a pretty big loss. All of us can share in what is happening if we consult and consider all of us. Okay. Any other thoughts? I'm looking particularly down the list at folks who have never spoken up. Jenna, I see a hand up for Jenna. Yay, a digital hand. So Jenna needs to unmute herself. Because I'm not hearing anything from Jenna. And I'm not sure if that was a real hand up, or if Jenna wants to say something, she's going to put her hand up again. I'm not seeing it. Okay. And I'm also I'm looking in the chat box and not seeing anything there. I am going to get this stuff posted as soon as I possibly can. I think you found out, if you read the flyer, you're one of the few people who actually reads my flyers, that I'm not doing the live streams anymore. It takes a lot of work on my side to make that happen. My internet has not been cooperative. It's cooperating today, so I want to get these recordings out to the world as soon as possible. I am I'm putting the recordings, making them available from let's say my 3 p.m. to my midnight. And I'm hoping the majority of people who want to get it will get it during that time. I would like to have had it so that all of us are doing the meditation at the same time. Can't make it happen. Not with the resources I've got right now. So we'll make it happen a different way. I think that's about it. So it's time for the beauty queen wave. I'm sorry, and smile. So so I look forward to seeing you next week, except unless you are inclined to join us on our daily meditation, where we continue this process. And I look forward to seeing you. We will talk at another point. Bye. See you. See you later.